Welcome to all my beautiful people. Welcome to AAA Short Stories by Nelson Nick. I'm Nelson Nick, and I'm your host. Today, we're going to go into an episode that we haven't done before. It's about the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, which has several amendments. And from our founding fathers, they have something called the United States Electoral College. It was about a few months ago. I was with my family, and we were asking ourselves, how is it possible that in democracy, you have a president that loses the popular vote, however wins the election? In the few minutes, we're going to have Mark and Zira explain what is the Electoral College. How is it formed? What is it all about? The title of this episode is the U.S. Electoral College. Democracy? Yes or no? So, in a few seconds, we're going to start with Mark. He's going to explain to us what the Electoral College is all about, and Zira also, and I have a few thoughts I would like to share with you. So, let's leave it to Mark. Mark, what is the Electoral College? According to the U.S. government, according to Wikipedia, and according to the House of Representatives. Take it away, Mark.
What is the Electoral College? According to archives.gov Federal Register, the Electoral College is a process, not a place. The Founding Fathers established it in the Constitution as a compromise between election of the President by a vote in Congress and election of the President by a popular vote of qualified citizens. The Electoral College process consists of the selection of the electors, the meeting of the electors where they vote for President and Vice President, and the counting of the electoral votes by Congress. The Electoral College consists of 538 electors. A majority of 270 electoral votes is required to elect the president. Your state's entitled allotment of electors equals the number of members in its congressional delegation, 1 for each member in the House of Representatives plus 2 for your senators. Under the 23rd Amendment of the Constitution, the District of Columbia is allocated 3 electors and treated like a state for purposes of the Electoral College. For this reason, in the following discussion, the word state also refers to the District of Columbia. Each candidate running for president in your state has his or her own group of electors. The electors are generally chosen by the candidate's political party, but state laws vary on how the electors are selected and what their responsibilities are. Read more about the qualifications of the electors and restrictions on who the electors may vote for. The presidential election is held every 4 years on the Tuesday after the first Monday in November. You help choose your state's electors when you vote for president, because when you vote for your candidate you are actually voting for your candidate's electors. Most states have a winner-take-all system that awards all electors to the winning presidential candidate. However, Maine and Nebraska each have a variation of proportional representation. After the presidential election, your governor prepares a certificate of ascertainment listing all of the candidates who ran for president in your state along with the names of their respective electors. The certificate of ascertainment also declares the winning presidential candidate in your state and shows which electors will represent your state at the meeting of the electors in December of the election year. Your state's certificates of ascertainments are sent to the Congress and the National Archives as part of the official records of the presidential election. The meeting of the electors takes place on the first Monday after the second Wednesday in December after the presidential election. The electors meet in their respective states, where they cast their votes for president and vice president on separate ballots. Your state's electors' votes are recorded on a certificate of vote, which is prepared at the meeting by the electors. Your state's certificates of votes are sent to the Congress and the National Archives as part of the official records of the presidential election. Each state's electoral votes are counted in a joint session of Congress on the 6th of January in the year following the meeting of the electors. Members of the House and Senate meet in the House chamber to conduct the official tally of electoral votes. The Vice President, as President of the Senate, presides over the count and announces the results of the vote. The President of the Senate then declares which persons, if any, have been elected President and Vice President of the United States. The President-elect takes the oath of office and is sworn in as President of the United States on January 20th in the year following the presidential election.
According to Wikipedia, the United States Electoral College is a body of electors established by the United States Constitution, constituted every 4 years for the sole purpose of electing the President and Vice President of the United States. The Electoral College consists of 538 electors, and an absolute majority of 270 electoral votes is required to win an election. Pursuant to Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2, the legislature of each state determines the manner by which its electors are chosen. Each state's number of electors is equal to the combined total of the state's membership in the Senate and House of Representatives. Currently there are 100 senators and 435 representatives. Additionally, the 23rd Amendment provides that the District of Columbia, D.C., is entitled to a number of electors no greater than that of the least populous state. Following the national presidential election day in the first week of November, each state counts its popular votes pursuant to that state's laws to designate presidential electors. Most all states allot all their electoral votes to the winning candidate in that state, no matter how marginal the candidates win. State electors meet in their respective state capitals in December to cast their votes. The results are certified by the states and D.C. to Congress, where they are tabulated nationally in the first week of January before a joint meeting of the Senate and House of Representatives. If a majority of votes are not cast for a candidate, the House resolves itself into a presidential election session with one presidential vote assigned to each of the 50 state delegations, excluding the District of Columbia. The elected president and vice president are inaugurated on January 20th. While the electoral vote has given the same result as the popular vote in most elections, this has not been the case in a few elections, including the 2000 and 2016 elections. The Electoral College system is a matter of ongoing debate, with some defending it and others calling for its abolition. Supporters of the Electoral College argue that it is fundamental to American federalism, that it requires candidates to appeal to voters outside large cities, increases the political influence of small states, discourages the excessive growth of political parties and preserves the two-party system, and makes the electoral outcome appear more legitimate than that of a nationwide popular vote. Opponents of the Electoral College argue that it can result in a person becoming president even though an opponent got more votes, which occurred in 2 of the 5 presidential elections from 2000 to 2016. That it causes candidates to focus their campaigning disproportionately in a few swing states while ignoring most areas of the country, and that its allocation of Electoral College votes gives citizens in less populated states, e.g. Wyoming, as much as 4 times the voting power as those in more populous states, example California. Most polls since 1967 have shown that a majority of Americans favor the president and vice president being elected by the nationwide popular vote.
Well, this is some of the information that Mark and Zira gave us, the basics of the Electoral College. Remember at the beginning of this episode I mentioned that I was with the family and we were discussing different issues about the Electoral College. Presidents that have not won the popular vote, however, have won the presidency through the Electoral College. 5 times a candidate has won the popular vote and lost the election. Way back in 1824, Andrew Jackson lost to John Quincy Adams. In 1876, Samuel Tilden lost to Rutherford B. Hayes. In 1888, Grover Cleveland lost to Benjamin Harrison. In 2000, Al Gore lost to George W. Bush. And recently, 3 years ago, in 2016, Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump. So, this is basically how I feel, and in my opinion, and everyone that I've spoken to. Democracy is a democratic that the popular vote, people voted for someone, and that someone loses to something called this Electoral College, is just plain wrong. This is my opinion. How is it possible that if you have 300 million people voting, for example, and 151 million over 149 million, and the person who received 149 million wins the election? This is completely wrong. That's not democratic. So my family and I got together and we were thinking, like, what can happen? In 1967, this was brought to the attention on a bill to change the Electoral College. It won in the House of Representatives, but it failed in the Senate. So my question is, do you believe if the people who voted for you have the right, or the Electoral College has the right, to decide who is president or who is vice president? I would say that if you have 100 people voting, 51 voted for President A and 49 voted for President B, we should stick to what the people want. By the people, for the people, to the people, everything about the people. If you vote for someone, your vote is counted. You don't leave it to anybody else to interpret what your vote's all about. If I remember correctly, and don't take this for granted, I think that Hillary Clinton won by 6 million votes and still Donald Trump became president. That is wrong. I believe in the popular vote. The people should decide, not any electors that represent the state, and then they vote for whom they interpret. So, I want to make something perfectly clear. We don't favor Republicans. We don't favor Democrats. We don't favor independents. In other words, we are exactly neutral to the political parties. So, what do you think? Do you think, should it be by the popular vote? Should it be by the Electoral College? That's your decision. We need to bring this on a bill so we could go ahead and amend our U.S. Constitution. But by the time being, this is what we have for now. So, I'm leaving the ball in your court. You decide what would be best for you. Other than that, Nelson, signing out.
You've got mail.